Ever wonder why your perfume smells like that? So basic chemistry behind it is it contains alcohols. We extract oils from the flowers from various eras, and those extractions are going to be processed with alcohol. As soon as it got fusion with the alcohol, it moved towards esterification, which is the reaction between acids and alcohol, and they give rise to a quite unique significant smell. As well as if we feel like food, there is a foodie perfume, like it smells like food. So the chemistry behind that is, in that case, they are going to contain esters in them, so that refers to the food fusion. So next time when you smell your perfume, you feel a fragrance or attraction towards it, you can have an idea that they are the beauty of the organic chemistry, because it extracts oil. When these oil got fused with alcohol, they give rise to a unique smell, and for cherry on the top, you might fuse it with the acid. The secondary chemistry has been divided into two major divisions: the organic chemistry and inorganic chemistry. Inorganic chemistry is the study of anything that will not contain carbon, or they contain any metal or any element except carbon. But when we particularly refers to the group number 4, it will be covered. Majorly carbon will be studied in the organic chemistry. What we will see in these chapters, we will see how carbon makes its bond with hydrogen, sometimes with oxygen. When carbon makes its bond with hydrogen and oxygen, this is called as the hydrocarbons. Hydrocarbons are those divisions of organic chemistry, or those branches of organic chemistry in which we will see alkane, alkene, and alkynes, how they are prepared, they play important role in formation of substances, and how we need them. Some of them we need for the combustion purposes. Sometimes we need them to prepare substances for the perfumes. These many activities are there. We will see in the upcoming details. But the major point should be kept in mind is that they play important role in the because they are non-polar, so we can use them for the sake of those activities who deal with the non-polarities. Majorly we use the same ability of them to prepare the soaps, because soaps prepare foams, and we use that foam to wash our hands. It is due to the hydrophobic nature of that soap, so we can wash it. It is going to be fusing up with the germs, or with any greases or any oily stuff present on the skin of us. So as soon as we apply the very soap on our hands, it is going to give us the cleaning effect. Okay, here's the next detail. When refers to the same carbon, it might bond with hydrogen, oxygen, even with nitrogen, sulfur, such as thiocyanate. They are all studied in the inorganic chemistry. Even their branches are studied, their properties are studied in the inorganic chemistry. Coal tar on pyrolysis or destructive distillation, it is simply how you can make certain categories. You can heat the substances, you can separate the substances on the basis of their boiling points, and gradually they are going to be separated. So more than 200 organic compounds have been directly extracted from the coal tar. Just like in case of petroleum, we cannot directly spare or purify a petrol or petroleum product. We have to pass it through the fractional distillation. Or what is it? Simply in that particular condition, you are going to boil substances at certain boiling points. Everything keep on separating apparatus certain boiling points. Now, these coal tar products form the starting material for the manufacture of thousands of useful aromatic compounds, including perfumes, drugs, and all that we can have it then. Okay, when it comes to the petroleum, in the word there is something which is called as a sticky liquid seeps out of the ground. That is the definition of the petroleum. The liquid is called as petroleum or crude oil. What is the difference between the crude oil and pure oil is that the crude oil is the one which contain impurities into it. We have to pass through the different strategies or methodologies. Generally, the fractional distillation is required in order to boil and separate the substances on the basis of their actual boiling point. So let's say there there's something you could say that roughly its boiling point is about 100 degrees. That will be converted into vapors, and then into condensation it will be converted into its original state. So we can separate it. Something whose boiling point is even huge than that one, maybe about 200, so it will be separated accordingly. That is how we can pure and spare the substances. Next thing would be the natural gas. When it comes to the natural gas, it is a mixture of low boiling hydrocarbons. It means they are going to be boiling. They are going to be boiled quick earlier, maybe about 30 degree, maybe about 40 degrees. So as soon as they will be boiling, they got to separate at the basis of their boiling point. Major portion of the natural gas is methane. That is why we used to say what the natural gas is. Methane is a natural gas, because other points are just derivatives, or you can say that certain concentration or minute or negligible concentration of substances is available. In Pakistan, there are various reserves of the gas, sui gas and all that. We can extract them and then we can later on use them. Okay, pyrolysis is simply when you take a substance, particularly the organic substance, you boil them or heat them in an anaerobic condition in the absence of air around about 500 or 600 degrees. That thing is going to be that phenomena is used to separate the substances at the basis of their different boiling points. Okay, so that is how we can spare the certain substances. Okay, that is actually the pyrolysis. So boiling of the substances and separate them at the particular temperature. I mean, like, simple definition is that boiling of substances at 500 to maybe 800 degrees, and then you can purify them. Okay, now next thing came out to be is that plants and other organic compounds. I think I jumped somewhere. Okay, so the next thing came out is that the plants and the natural product chemistry. What is it? It is simply, it will be dealing about the extraction of substances, how we can extract certain substances from the plants. Let's say if we have to use some cellulose or starches, some starches could be used to even make, like, if there is an ideology, we want to make a plastic body. Let's say I want to make the non-biodegradable plastic, which is very basic requirement nowadays, because actual plastic is not degradable, or even that is more dangerous even. So certain strategies have been developed that we should rely on the natural resources or man-made plastics, nature-made plastic. For that purpose, starch is required. This particular chemistry is going to help us out in order to develop or extract this type of plastics. So like cellulose. Okay, so if we extract cellulose, we can use cellulose starches to make the plastic bodies. That was the general example, like why we need to extract something from plants. So this particular branch of chemistry will be helping us to extract certain material, and later on we can use it to develop certain product. Next thing came out to be is the total and partial synthesis. As per the concept, when it comes to the partial synthesis, it is something you have extracted it from the plant or from any general resource, and later on half of it or partial amount of it you can make in the laboratory. This is called as the partial synthesis. When it comes to the total synthesis, it is something you straight away make all the stuff in the laboratory, and then you can serve it for what purpose it was required. Simple organic compounds derived from the petroleum and coal, it has been converted into the thousands of useful material by the synthetic methods, and many examples might be cited of synthetic organic compounds. They replace those obtained from the natural resources such as dyes, rubbers and all that. Okay, next thing came out. Partial synthesis is simply in this synthesis, an intermediate product of the reaction is used to synthesize the required product. So what the partial synthesis is, simply you got in the middle, and that very middle product you are going to use for the synthesis of the required product. Let's say you got, I mean, like, we somehow we fail to develop that middle quantity or that middle product. In that particular particular condition, the products will not be formed, the actual product will not be created. So they are saying that according to this concept, you need to be like for this particular partial synthesis, intermediate product is very important. Biomolecules are treated with the other reagents target to target drugs or medicine. For example, preparation of vegetable ghee and formation of soap. In this condition, we usually rely that if intermediate product is not available, we cannot make the reaction to move forward. The reaction will be halting itself, the reaction will be stopped. That is why intermediate product is important. When it comes to the total synthesis, in this synthesis the starting material is converted through many steps to reach the target product. So synthesis is urea by the Wöhler process is really fine. If you have the starting material, you can simply like somehow not very extent. So in a simple one-liner, we can differentiate between partial synthesis and complete or total synthesis by when the partial synthesis comes, it refers to when when the desired product could be obtained from the intermediate product of the reaction. This is partial synthesis. When the same product or the desired product is obtained by converting starting material through many steps, this is called as the total synthesis. So for the total synthesis, starting material is important, but for the partial synthesis, the intermediate product would be the most important or most desired stuff to have. You can simply change up the direction and then you can actually reach up the product. So again, partial synthesis is when your major focus is on the intermediate product. When it comes to the total synthesis, even first product is going to play the massive important role. When it comes to fermentation, straight away we should be clear that we need to use some microorganism. Even biotechnology majorly require the presence of the microorganisms. The chemical breakdown of organic compounds with the help of microorganisms such as bacteria or yeast is called as the fermentation. The field of applied biology that deals with the study of organisms and bioprocess and like formation of different products. Simply, basically, even if you need a yogurt formation, you are doing fermentation at your home. It's not possible if you are like at large scale. It's not possible to do that fermentation because you need to stabilize the temperature of that microorganism. In this branch of fermentation, we usually like consider that you are performing an experiment. You need to develop the certain temperature to make the production of to make the lifespan of microorganism stable. If it is possible, then the individual could have a long lasting life and you can make up your product. Otherwise, that organism is straight away ready to die. You cannot make your final product. So for example, over here the formation of molasses or sugar products or alcohol or vinegar and many other products need the bacterial action. Even you could say that rough or agricultural alcohol is something they totally rely on microorganisms. Always the process is very weird to follow. Like they used to bury fruits, especially the grapes, under the ground, and they allow it to got heat, and that heat will convert them into the alcohol, and then they straight away drink it. Obviously, it's not good for health. Alcohol itself is not good for health, but this method is even failed because the bacteria starts to die, as well as apart from bacterial life, the reaction would be even more anaerobic. That is why it's not acceptable. So next thing would be the coal as a source of organic compounds. Coal is produced by the decaying of trees buried under the earth crust. Under the influence of higher temperature and pressure, the trees got converted into the coal. As soon as you place them near oxygen, you pass them through the combustion process, they will be straight away converting into the coal. Destructive distillation of coal. What is it? When coal is heated in the absence of air, ranging from temperature of 500 to 1000, it is converted into three different forms, i.e. coke, coal gas and coal tar would be the major conversion of them. Coal tar is what when it have a large number of organic compounds which are further separated on the fractional distillation. What the fractional distillation is, it is actually the separation of compounds, the separation of material on the basis of their boiling points. Everything is gonna be separated at its requisite boiling point. The total coal reserve of Pakistan are estimated by the Geological Survey to be this ton, but we are unable to access to all of it. Why? Because lack of technology and lack of, obviously it's very expensive than the actual coal is, but somehow we can make a rough estimate of it. So here is the fig. You can take coal, you can separate the certain material into it by the fractional destructive distillation, boiling everything on certain boiling point, and then accordingly we can separate it. Next thing would be the characteristics of the organic compounds. What the organic compounds are, they, first thing is about their composition. When it comes to their composition, it is an essential constituent of all organic compound. Carbon, obviously, organic chemistry is basically the study of carbon. If there is no carbon, all chemistry is going to be fall down. Combustion is of two types. One thing is complete combustion, other is incomplete combustion when availability of fine oxygen is available, that is going to be the complete combustion. It will be giving you carbon dioxide as an end product, but in case of the least availability of oxygen, it is going to be termed as the incomplete combustion. The end product of it will be production of carbon monoxide. When it comes to the melting and boiling points, the organic compounds generally have low melting and low boiling points. They are volatile. These two things are way different. People got confused into it, so you should be clear. When something is highly volatile, it means it has lower boiling point. So it will be converting into vapors like immediately. It was in liquid and then it will be converting into the vapors immediately. Okay, solubility, obviously it is the most basic phenomenon of chemistry, that like dissolve like. So when you are having organic compounds, when you are having the polar compounds will dissolve polar, non-polar will dissolve non-polar. That is how we can rely on to it. When it comes to organic compounds, they are like non-polar. Obviously they are having least polarity on them. Carbon is having positive charge, carbon is having negative charge in this case. Why? Because carbon lie way in the middle of the periodic table. When it is in the middle of the periodic table, the charge on carbon would be negative on this side. Why? Because it is going to attract electrons from the group number 1, 2, 3. Likewise, it is going to be, its electrons will be attracted towards the like elements of group number 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 is neutral, obviously. Okay, so in this case it is partially polar somehow at rare condition, but generally we can say that it is non-polar. But when it comes to the covalent bonding, somehow it will show some sort of partial attraction towards the electrons of hydrogen. Next thing would be so it is soluble in the it will be soluble in the organic compounds such as alcohol, ether, benzene, blah blah blah. They are less soluble in water, because water will attract something, that is, it will allow something who is polar in nature to got soluble into it, such as salt. NaCl is quite easily soluble in water because of presence of the charges. Stability, since the organic compounds have low melting and boiling points, they generally decompose at higher temperature into the simple substances. Because they are having lower melting and boiling points, we can separate the substances at the basis of their certain temperatures. Electrical conductivity, due to the presence of covalent bond, which we usually consider it as the stable bond, and it is really hard to break the bond. So we can say that the organic compounds are poor conductor, because what the conductivity or what the electricity is, it is simply the flow of charges or flow of electrons. As soon as electrons are flowing, the conduction is going to be smooth. But when there is no flow of electron or least flow of electron, the conduction would not be possible. That is why we can say that they are least conductive. In fused state, both in fused, I mean like the same for it. but it's generally considered as non-conductor. So, but somehow you can say that it is poor conductor because it might be possible that it would conduct, but it's a poor conductor of electricity source. They are obtained from the plants and animal sources. Its rates of reaction are very slow and they need the specific condition to go through to this process, but generally they are very slow to progress. Organic, okay, uses of organic compounds. What are the uses of it? The importance of the, okay, how are they important? Obviously food, protein, fats, carbohydrates and oils, they are the basic requirements of a person's body. If we fall with carbohydrates, which is actually the sugar, we will straight away die. Protein is required because we want them to conduct messages. Fats are required. If somebody starves, they need fat, they would be relying on fats. Clothing, why were they needing, because obviously in order to make the nylon will be nylon, he is going to hit away the nylon. Ahead there is a topic for nylon. So simply nylon is made by combining certain organic compounds, certain carbon containing compounds, and it is important. The natural fiber like cotton, silk fiber, wool, they have plants and animals origin. Synthetic fiber like these things, they are made in the industry. Shelter, wood, paints, varnishes, they are made by the organic compounds. Power and transportation, the natural gases, the petroleum products. If there is no availability of petrol, how can we make all the car industry or the technology will be it's just of no use. The medicine and drugs, penicillin and streptomycin, they have saved lives of trillions of people, and even they are doing now. So they're obviously the blessing of organic chemistry. All types of medicines used in the allopathy, homeopathy, and this thing, they are of the organic compounds. Insecticides, DDT, they are examples of this thing. Hormones and steroids, they are also made organic compounds. Vitamins and enzymes, they are required to perform the functions of body in a way they should be. If there is no enzyme and if body fails to make any difference, let's say, in them, that would not be possible. Let's say, okay, let's pick an enzyme. What is the role of organic chemistry in it? Let's say a person suffers from a certain disease. In order to figure out what type of enzyme or which enzyme is deficient in his body, I would be leading to the organic chemistry by doing the certain activities, or you could say that yeah, I forgot the name of particular machinery. So you can simply figure out what type of compound or carbon containing compound is deficient, then we will be giving medicine to that particular person. Antiseptics and anesthetics, if they are not made by the organic chemistry, we obviously the operations are not going to be possible. Pigments and dyes, they are also blessing of organic chemistry. Papers and inks are made sometimes lab, sometimes we extract them. They are the blessing of organic chemistry. Perfumes and flavors, they are also organic compound and we extract them from the organic resources. Propellants and explosives, okay, even they are available, they are studied by the organic chemistry. People made them in lab and then we can use them. So basically soaps and detergents, soaps are made by the fatty compounds, the fatty acids and glycerol, which are in turn carbon made substances. We can make use of them, and the fatty acid composition of the soaps make them able to be slippery. So since it is slippery in nature, it is going to be rubbing up against our hands and then we can use them for the cleansing purposes. Herbicides, what the herbicides are just like insecticides. They are going to kill the herbs who are unwanted. Why we need to kill them? Because if they are present and if they would develop, they would be sharing the fertilizers, the minerals who are actually to be intaken by the plants, and when they're taking the food of plants, the plants would not be getting that nutrients, and there would be a huge loss of fertilizers because ultimately they will be eating that material which should be intaken by the plants. The example of herbicide is a Teflon, but the Teflon it is called as the polytetrafluoroethylene. What is it? It is basically a hydrocarbon and carbon made substances. That is why we have quoted this one as the example. They're also used in the photographed films and the developers because they use them because carbons are bonded together and then they will be framing into another structure, so we can see a negative which is not available nowadays. But earlier, the negative used to develop the photos, and simply we can use carbon-based structures. Buckyballs are basically defined as the compounds composed solely of even number of carbon atoms who are attached together to give rise to a to make a cave-like fused ring, which is even made by the polycyclic system. So when even number of carbons are attached up to the number 60, they give rise, which is majorly nowadays used in the nanoparticles. Nanoparticles is just example of them. What is use of them? Basic use of them is that it's a black colored solid that dissolves in hydrocarbon solvent to produce a violet solution. So we can use them in order to simply there is a new molecule which looks like a football. Sometimes it is conductor, so we can even modify its shape. But the idea should be in your mind is that it consists of the covalent bonded structure. When carbon is covalently bonded to another around about 60 carbons, and when they are bonded together in this way, they give rise to a structure which is called as the buckyball. How we can use it? Because they create a pentagon, maybe a hexagon, and accordingly we can modify that ball into the different functions. The next topic would be functional groups and homologous series. Functional group is simply the properties of organic molecules who are predominantly determined by the properties of the functional group in that particular compound. It could be a single bonded atom, it could be a double bond. Even there should be what is the role of the double or triple bond. If there are 100, there are 90, there is a chain of 100 carbons, and among that 100 carbon, if there are 99 singly bonded structure, but we somehow attach the double bond, that will change the nature of those carbon-carbon structures. It will be changing them into the even number, which is like alkene or alkyne basically. So a functional group is an atom or a group of atoms in a molecule that gives characteristic properties to the molecule. Double and triple bonded structures are there, and they will be modifying properties accordingly. Just like here an example is given, a functional group if attached to the 5 carbon, if we see right side of the equation or right side of this formula, there is a hydrocarbon which will be about pentane is there, but if we see on the very right side of it, there is an OH, a functional group present. So it let me know that this is the alcoholic group which is being available on this structure. R group represent the alkyl family. It could be any number of carbon attached together. It could be it might represent about 20, 30 unlimited number of carbons. So the best idea to memorize them to see is to write up a smallest number on the very right side of it if you cannot memorize them. Why do we need the functional group in our lives? What is the importance of them? Simply, they help us out to in the nomenclature. We can use them for the naming of substances. They can also help us all to classify the organic compound, because if let's say there was no functional group as a distinctive study, we would not be able to differentiate between alkene, alkyne and alkyne. That will be a massive issue then. It makes us able to predict the properties of certain elements, certain compounds. Even if the first property, generally we say that if alkanes are there, we should be clear that some of them basic earlier structure of them would be earlier compounds of them would be in the gaseous in nature, then liquid, and ultimately they would be solid. Likewise, we can make prediction if halogen family is present or halide group is attached to any structure or it is attached to any functional group. We should be clear that this group is going to face the electronegativity. If more than one functional group is present, we can call the family or the group as the polyfunctional. Here is a list of the functional groups attached to these molecules. Alkane is the very first functional group over here. All the carbons are attached to other carbons via the single bond, and example of them is ethane. Alkene, when carbon are attached together via the double bond. Alkyne, when carbon is attached to another carbon by making the triple bond. Ethine is also called as acetylene. Arene, when arene is here, the basic idea to memorize it is that that single and double bonded bonds would be arranged alternatively. Benzene is the example of them. Halide, When halides are there, there should be presence of members of group number 7 because they are known for their electronegativity. Methyl chloride is the example. Alcohol. When there is alcohol, it refers to the attachment or presence of OH group. OH group will be representing the alcoholic family, and accordingly some of them could be used for the medicational purposes. Some people used to take it as the mind relaxer. Ether. People got confused in ether. What is it? The clear example of it would be the presence of oxygen in the middle, and both the left and right side of oxygen would be surrounded by carbon atoms. Diethyl ether is the example of them. Amine. When it comes to amine, we will study the same bond in the amino acids as well, and it is simply straight away refers to carbon and nitrogen group attached together. Nitrile. The identification, or like how we can study this thing, or maybe how we can memorize it. There would be presence of a carbon bond making triple bond with the nitrogen. So we can simply example of it as carbon. Methyl cyanide is the best example of them. Thiol. Thiol is when sulfur is attached to hydrogen. Methane thiol is the best example. It is also called as methiol. Carbonyl is here when it comes to carbonyl group, carbon double bonded to nitrogen, as well as there could be any other carbon. Aldehyde ketone, they are the further derivatives of it. When it comes to aldehyde, there should be carbon double bonded to oxygen, as well as there must be presence of one hydrogen. The left side of it, as I am moving my cursor, it should be surrounded with the carbon atoms. But when it comes to ketone, there should be a carbonyl family, C double bond O, but at the very left and right side it should be surrounded by the two carbon atoms. Example of it would be acetone. Dimethyl ketone is the example of it. Likewise, there is another functional group, carboxylic acid. Carbon double bond with oxygen is the first requirement of it, but meanwhile it should be surrounded by OH. So C double bond O or C double O H would be the example of it. Acetic acid is the example. When it comes to ester, ester is the one when carbon should be doubly bonded with oxygen. Other side of it should have an oxygen, but the point next to oxygen is that it requires availability of carbon. If there is hydrogen, it will be carboxylic acid. Otherwise, it would be called as carbon. Amide group, presence of NH2 is the requirement. Other side could be surrounded with the carbon atom. Carboxylic acid chloride, presence of C double bond O, and there is an attachment of chlorine group next to it. Acetyl chloride is here. There is a chlorine group on one side of it. Other side would be surrounded by methane. Carboxylic acid anhydride is that there would be two carboxylic groups, C double bond O, having oxygen in the very middle. Acetic anhydride is the example of it.